Chapter 1, Miss Winston. Kirsten hurried down the path beside her cousin Lizbeth. In one hand, she carried a lunch in her wooden tine. With the other, she held her shawl tightly around her shoulders. "You're walking too fast," Kirsten said, but Lizbeth didn't slow down. "Mr. Coogan will be angry if we're late. He's really strict," she answered. Lizbeth was 11. Mr. Coogan had been her teacher since she was 9. She loved to tell stories about how fierce he was. In fact, ever since July, when Kirsten and her family had come to live on Uncle Olaf's farm, Lizbeth and her sister Anna had talked about Mr. Coogan and Powdered Keg School. Now it was November. The harvest was over, and it was time for the fall term to begin. Today would be Kirsten's first day in an American school. Kirsten walked as fast as she could to keep up with Lizbeth's longer stride. Her boots puffed up dust. Anna, who was just 7, tagged farther behind. "Wait for me," she called. "I want to stop for a drink of water." Kirsten and Lizbeth stopped beside the stream. A light mist rose from the clear water, and a few yellow leaves floated on it. Kirsten stopped and put her fingertip into a deer track in the sand. How she wished she could stay here by the stream instead of going to school. "If you mind him, Mr. Coogan will like you," Lizbeth said, "but he gets really angry when the big boys fight." "In Sweden, the boys weren't allowed to fight in school," Kirsten said. Lizbeth smiled and tossed her head. "Well, this is America, and here the boys get wild whether they should or not. Sometimes Mr. Coogan hits them with a cane. Once he punched Amos Anderson with his fist. If you talk back to Mr. Coogan, he swats your hand with his ruler." Anna wiped her mouth on the back of her hand. Her round cheeks were rosy from running along the path. "He's mean, but he'll never hit you, Kirsten. You're too nice. Don't worry." Kirsten let out a long breath. "I'm not really worried," she said softly, but she was dizzy, the way she'd felt on the ship just before she was seasick. "Does your stomach hurt?" Anna asked. "When I'm scared, my stomach hurts and flutters like there's a bird inside me." Kirsten put her hand to her waist. Yes, her stomach did feel full of wings, butterflies maybe, and she hadn't been able to eat the pancakes Mama made for breakfast. "My stomach hurts a little," she admitted. "I was really scared the first day I went to school," Anna said. "I wondered if the others would like me. It's hard to be the new girl." Lizbeth slipped her arm through Kirsten's as they started along the path again. "Just do what we do, Kirsten. You'll get along fine in school." Kirsten sighed. "But I can't do what you do. I only speak a little bit of English, and I can't read a word of it. I won't fit in at all." How she wished she were back in her village in Sweden, where she knew everyone and everyone knew her, and they all spoke the same language. "School only lasts until 4 o'clock, Anna added. "When it's over, we can stop at our fort and play for a few minutes." She darted off to hide their dolls in the secret hideaway under the cherry tree. On her way back, she broke off a sprig of bittersweet and handed Kirsten a few of the waxy red berries. "We can put these berries on our doll cakes," Kirsten said. "Come on," Lizbeth said. "I hear the school bell." She began to run. And suddenly, before Kirsten was ready, they were in the clearing in front of the large log cabin that was Powdered Keg School. The last children were just going in the door. Powdered Keg School didn't look very different from the log cabin Kirsten and her family lived in on Uncle Olaf's farm. But the school had more windows, and the stovepipe stuck up in the center of the roof. "There's the outhouse," Anna said. She pointed to a small shed behind the log cabin. "Girls use it before boys do at recess. I won't let any boys peek at you, I promise." Kirsten hadn't thought of that. What a lot of things she had to worry about. She peered around Lizbeth's shoulder into the schoolhouse. Children were finding places to sit on the benches that lined the walls. Only her brothers, Lars and Peter, looked familiar. Lars sat with the other big boys. Peter was with the younger boys, some even smaller than he. Kirsten took a deep breath as though she were about to dive into the stream. She followed Anna and Lizbeth through the door. Lizbeth pulled off her shawl and hung it on a peg. Kirsten draped hers over it. For a moment, she let her forehead rest against the comforting wool that smelled of wood smoke. Then she turned and looked around. A pot-bellied wood stove sat in the open space in the center of the room, but instead of the fearsome Mr. Coogan, a young woman in a black dress sat on the teacher's chair by the stove. She watched Kirsten and her cousins as they walked to the benches on the girls' side of the room, but she didn't smile a welcome. "We have a new teacher," Lisbeth whispered as she and Kirsten sat down. The young teacher stood and tapped the stove with a ruler to get everyone's attention. Her dark hair was parted cleanly in the middle, her chin was up, her shoulders were back like a soldier's. "I am Miss Winston," she said in a crisp voice. "I've come west from Camden, Maine. I'm to be your teacher because Mr. Coogan was injured when his horse threw him." She looked around to see if all the students had heard her. "I hope his horse stepped on him too," a black-haired boy said out loud. "That's Amos Anderson," Lisbeth whispered. Miss Winston faced Amos. "You will not talk out of turn in my classroom. Although we live in the woods, we are not savages like the Indians." "You will not talk out of turn in my classroom," Miss Winston said. Amos grinned and looked down at his big hands. He had broad shoulders and the beginnings of a black mustache. Kirsten thought he looked more like a man than a boy. "Now you know my name," Miss Winston continued, "but I don't know yours. I'd like each of you to come forward and introduce yourself to me politely. We are ladies and gentlemen here at Powder Keg School." Anna was the first of the girls to go forward. She made a quick curtsy and said, "Anna Larson, ma'am." Miss Winston nodded. "Very good. Next, please." Kirsten tried to remember the names of the girls, but her head buzzed like a hive of bees. She didn't want to walk out there in the middle of the room with everyone watching her. She was the last girl to take her turn. The floor seemed to move under her as she stepped forward. She kept her gaze on her dusty boots as she made her curtsy. "Kirsten Larson," she muttered. Before she could escape back to the bench, Miss Winston said, "Say, Kirsten Larson, ma'am." "Ma'am," Kirsten repeated, but the word didn't sound right. She felt a blush prickle at the base of her throat. Miss Winston bent to look Kirsten right in the eye. "Do you speak English?" she asked. "A little, ma'am." The buzz in Kirsten's ears was so loud she could hardly hear her own words, but she heard one of the girls giggle at her halting English. "She's our cousin, Miss Winston," Anna said. "She came to America last summer. We speak Swedish at home, ma'am." Miss Winston raised her eyebrows and said, "Ah, well, you will speak English in school, Kirsten, and you will begin with the easiest lessons. Anna will share her book with you and help you. Do you understand?" Kirsten nodded. "Say, 'I understand, ma'am,'" Miss Winston reminded her. "If you're going to learn English, you must practice. Practice makes perfect." Now it was Amos who laughed at Kirsten. Miss Winston's eyes narrowed, and she motioned for Kirsten to sit down again on the bench. Then Miss Winston whirled around, raised her ruler over her head, and brought it smashing down on the top of the iron stove. The crack went through the room like the shot of a rifle. "My father could not be a ship's captain if he weren't in charge of his crew. I couldn't be a teacher if I weren't in charge of my students." Again she raised the ruler high and smacked the stove. "This is your first lesson," she said. Miss Winston hit the stove. Miss Winston is the subject of that sentence. Hit is the verb. The direct object of hit is the stove. Be careful, but the direct object of hit isn't the students. Do you have any questions? No one said a single thing. Good. Now, you boys please come and introduce yourselves. Remember, you're gentlemen, not savages. The littlest boys went first. They spoke their names and bowed. Even Peter, who was only 5, took his turn easily. He learned a lot of English without even seeming to try, Kirsten thought. It was Lars's turn. He said, "I'm Lars Larson, ma'am," in a loud voice that everyone could hear easily. Lars wasn't afraid of anything, not even this teacher who seemed so strict. Mama had cut his hair last night and had hugged his head like a bright cap. Amos, with his dark mustache and eyes the color of blue paint, came last. He was much taller than Miss Winston. He looked as tall as Uncle Olaf. "Amos Anderson, ma'am," he said. He bobbed his head instead of bowing. Which reading book are you using, Amos?" Miss Winston asked him. "I finished the third one, ma'am." He winked at the girl's bench. Only the third? How old are you? Miss Winston asked. I'm 19, Amos drawled, same as you. Miss Winston tapped her palm with her ruler and considered him. Yes, Amos, I am 19 too, but I am the teacher and you are the students. I'm here to help you read and do sums the way a man must if he wants to make his way in the world. Please set a good example for the others. Amos's face turned red. He looked at Miss Winston closely. Why don't I go draw a bucket of water so that the children can all have a drink before we started reading, he said. Thank you, Amos. That's a good idea, Miss Winston said. Amos grabbed one of the wooden buckets. Through the small window, Kirsten saw him run like a deer toward the stream. Miss Winston stood with her back to the door. While we wait for our drink of water, we'll sing a song. Singing is very good exercise. It brings fresh air into our lungs. Keeping time with her ruler, she sang, Be it ever so humble, there's no place like home. Her voice was firm and clear. Everyone sang along. Home. The word was as sweet as clover honey on Kirsten's lips. How she wished she were home in Sweden, where she was comfortable, where she could be herself, or home with Mama in their cozy cabin, or anywhere but here with Miss Winston in Powder Keg School. Soon the singing stopped, and Amos was back with the bucket of water. He set it on the bench and handed Anna the dipper so she could get a drink. Girls first, he said, as though he were in charge here, not Miss Winston. If Miss Winston minded, she didn't show it. She was busy passing out the books, small slates, and slate pencils. Anna leaned against Kirsten's shoulder and opened her book to the alphabet section. She ran her finger down the page to the picture of a dog. D. Dog. Doesn't this dog look just like our brownie when he smells a fox? Anna said. See, here are the letters that spell dog. Copy them on your slate like I do. Kirsten took her slate and did as Anna told her to. Once in a while, Anna licked her finger, erased one of Kirsten's letters, and had her start again. Kirsten pressed her tongue against her upper lip and tried hard. Around her, the other children worked at their reading. Some of them read out loud. When Miss Winston came to check Kirsten's work, she said, It seems Anna is a good teacher. Can you read what you've written here? Dog, Kirsten said proudly. She hoped Miss Winston might say she'd done well. Instead, Miss Winston pointed to Anna's slate. You must learn to write The Dog Can Run, as Anna has done, she said. I love school, don't you? Anna whispered. Kirsten glanced up at the dusty window panes. It was still early morning. The first day of school was going to be a long one. She sighed and wrote again on her slate. At last, the first day of school was over. On their way home, Kirsten and her cousins stopped to play in their fort under the cherry tree. Anna fetched the dolls she hid that morning. Anna's and Lizbeth's rag dolls had pretty painted faces, but Kirsten's doll didn't even have a face. It was an outgrown stocking stuffed with milkweed floss. Kirsten's real doll, Sorry, was still in the painted trunk they had to store in Riverton. Kirsten missed her Sorry so much that she named her sock doll Little Sorry. Hello, children, Anna said to the dolls in her high voice. Come introduce yourselves like ladies. To Kirsten, she said, Do you think Miss Winston is nice? I don't know, Kirsten said. She likes you, Anna. I don't think she likes me. And remember how she scolded? Yeah, she was fierce, Anna said. Is that what Mr. Coogan was like? Kirsten asked. No, he was much worse, Lizbeth answered. Let's play school, Anna suggested. She petted down the long, soft grass and picked out 3 red sumac leaves for benches. The girls sat their dolls down in a row. We'll pretend it's lunchtime, Kirsten said. She thought lunch had been the only good part of the school day. After she had eaten her bread and cheese and sausage, she played tree tag with the others in the schoolyard. In tag, it didn't matter that Kirsten couldn't speak English well because she was one of the fastest runners. Now, Elizabeth placed a little cake made of dried mud in front of each doll. Here's your lunch, children, she said. One mud cake was decorated with gooseberries, one with acorn caps, one with sunflower seeds in a star pattern. Anna clapped her hands and scolded the dolls. No, no, children, don't eat so fast. Remember, you are not savages like the Indians. She sounded exactly like Miss Winston. When Kirsten laughed, she lost some of the flutters that had been in her stomach all day. What does savage mean? She asked Lizbeth. Lizbeth made a scary face and pretended her hands were scratching claws. Savage means wild. Are the Indians really savage? Kirsten asked. Some people say the Indians are kind, Elizabeth said as she gave her doll a second cake. They say the Indians gave them deer meat and corn when they needed food, but other people say the Indians are cruel and bloodthirsty. An Indian came to our door once when Mama was roasting pork, Anna said. Mama gave him a piece of meat and he went away. He didn't hurt us, but he didn't say thank you either, Elizabeth said. He looked savage, Anna said. He had red paint on his cheeks and eagle feathers in his hair. He didn't wear trousers, and we didn't hear him coming. We looked up and suddenly he was in the doorway. Anna's eyes were wide. That's Indian magic. Lisbeth laughed. That's not magic, Anna. They wear soft shoes, that's all. They wear long knives, too, Anna said. She shivered and hugged her doll. And they live in tents. Papa worries about the Indians, Lisbeth said. He says that if we plant crops in their hunting land, the wild animals will go away. He says the Indians won't have enough to eat then, and they'll surely be angry. I don't know. Her voice trailed off and she looked at Kirsten with her gray eyes. Papa says we need the land too. Do the Indians live in their tents all winter? Don't they get cold? Asked Kirsten. I don't know, Lisbeth said. You're too curious, Kirsten. Let's just play school.